Welcome back, artists. Here we are, ready to make some pinch pots. So the idea is that hopefully you will have gotten clay from me in a plastic bag. And what you're going to do, it could come to you in all different ways, and it doesn't matter how it comes. It just matters how we get it all together. What you want to do is grab your clay and get it into a nice ball. So how I do that is I go around and around and around, and I'm squishing it all together in my hands like this. Notice I'm not using the table right now. I'm just using my hands to get it kind of into a lumpy ball. The next thing I'm going to do is roll it. Now here's a warning. The more that you roll your clay and the more that you squish your clay, the drier it gets. And you don't want dry clay when you're making a pinch pot. That's bad news. Things won't go well and your pot will continue to break apart. There's no way to fix dry clay except adding water back to it, which becomes complicated at home. So really you want to do this process of rolling it into a ball, rolling it like this just for 10-15 seconds, I mean not very long at all, and then starting to sculpt with it, because like I said, the drier it gets, the more disaster it could be. So we want to keep our clay nice and wet, and yes, your hands will get plenty dirty. So I rolled it and I realized it's still bumpy. I can't roll out these bumps. I'm simply not strong enough, capable enough to roll out these bumps. So what I'm going to do here is just take my thumb and kind of smooth out those really hard bumps. Smooth them out nicely. And then the next step will be to gently roll it again and get it into that ball form. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is a great start. Now what I'm going to do is, holding it in my hand, I'm going to push my thumb in it. If you notice my workspace here, Mrs. Samla is working on an old board. It's really a great way to work, but honestly, when we're in the classroom, every student just has a piece of paper down, and that's for the following steps. And the reason why we're having a piece of paper is when we put it down. But guess what? I'm not putting it down right now. Nope. It's there ready for me. I don't want it to stick to my table, so I have my piece of paper, but this is not leaving my hands right now, so don't do it. So now what I'm going to do is shove my thumb, and this is tough, down here, and I'm going to have a feeling of it being about that thick. It's about the width of my thumb or my finger, not my little pinky finger, but definitely my first finger will feel good. I want to feel that bottom and that it's not too thick. If it's too thick, you can have a problem where it could break apart in the kiln. If it's too thin, it will break apart. So too thick and too thin are both bad deals. So now that my thumb is down over here into the clay like this, what I'm going to do is pinch on the bottom of the clay. Every person in the world, whether they're young or old, wants to start pinching here because that's the fun stuff, to pinch the top. But you actually have to start pinching at the bottom. That's so, so important. So my thumb is down at the bottom and it's getting full of clay. My thumbnail's got clay on it. That's okay. I can wash up later. I'm pinching and pinching the bottom. I don't even have to look at the clay. I'm just feeling it with my fingers because honestly, I can't see much of anything anyway when I look inside or look on the outside. So pinching around that bottom part. And now I'm starting to pinch in the middle. I pinched my bottom really well, and now I'm starting to pinch in the middle. Usually I'm holding my clay like this in my hand to keep that cupped, that rounded bottom, because a round bottom is that strong bottom on here. So now I'm twirling it and pinching on the sides. And pretty soon, when all my sides feel a nice thickness, again, about the thickness of my finger, just like the bottom. So my bottom feels the same, my sides feel the same, all of this down here feels the same, but oh, my top part is really, really, really wide. I need to go over here and make sure that I get that all the way pinched out, and now all of the pot feels the same. The bottom all the way up to the top. Stop. Start. Now I am ready to go ahead and fix the rest of this. So the deal is that I went and got some water over here because I have a deep crack over here and I don't want that. So I'm just going to use this container and add a little bit of water back to the clay. Some people will get clay, depending on when they use it, that feels really wet and you won't have to add any water to it. And other people's clay, if you don't use it right away, can get drier. And so you might have to add water back at this point. So I'm just adding a little water and I'm just going to kind of squish this together and feel so that actually gets blended out. If you have a hard time blending out your deeper crack, you can always ask an adult and they might be able to help you, or we can work it in later. We can work it into your design. Now I know I'm done with my pinch pot when the bottom of my pot feels the same as the sides and the sides feel the same as the top. So all of this feels right to me. It's hard to see all of it, but it feels right. Now I can take some time and I can go ahead and smooth it out on the inside just the way that I want it to be, and I can smooth it out on the outside. When I smooth it on the outside, I leave it rounded and then I do this. This really works the best as far as I'm concerned. Again, if you need to add a fingerful of water like this, one fingerful of water goes a really, really long way to changing up your pinch pot and making it smooth again. I really think it's important to get the top lip looking the best before I do anything else to this clay. And the reason why I think that is because this is usually the part that the people see first, is that top lip, and then they look on the inside and they'll notice the outside. So trying to make the top lip so it looks like it's not too thick in some areas, not too thin. It looks nice and flat, nice and smooth. I think that that's probably the best thing to do. And now we need to move to the next step. All right, friends, we are ready to add some parts. Hopefully you've reserved some clay from your piece in order to add some parts to your pinch pot. And what we're about to do is, now that we have a nice curved back and a curved pinch pot, it's really strong at this point. I want you to decide what kind of creature you want to make, whether it's real or imaginary, and then how you want it to be viewed. Most of the time, I want my artwork to be viewed like this, so it's my creature is on its side. Notice though that this is really tippy and it's not wanting to stay. So my job as an artist is to go like this and get it kind of squished and bent very gently, bend it down so it actually stays. Be careful that it's not just sticking to the paper and staying because it's wet and stuck to the paper. Be careful that it's actually balanced that way. And what I'm going to be doing then is creating a monster mouth actually for mine, but people make puppies or frogs or fish or whales or anything, narwhals, all kinds of different animals. So excuse me, now that my pinch pot is on its side, I'm going to build an animal out of it. I will rip off a couple of pieces because I want to make two eyeballs, and I want one eyeball to be small and one to be big, which is kind of fun. Give it a little bit of an expression. You want to add one fingerful of water so it makes your clay just shiny on the top, and then what you're going to do is actually crank on, going back and forth, turning it around. You're getting the wet eye and the wet part of this, all that clay pieces kind of stuck together and attached really well. And then I give it the wiggle test, so I go and kind of hit it with my finger. And when I hit it with my finger and it doesn't fall off, I know it's stuck. Students get fooled and they just put on water, they go like this, they're like, oh yeah, that feels stuck, the eye looks great. Well, the eye does look great, but I guarantee it's not stuck. When I give it the wiggle test, it just plops right off. I barely touched it. So the idea here is that you actually have to get those two surfaces of clay, the eye surface and the mouth surface, turned and stuck on there so it really doesn't want to come off anymore. At that point, you might have like misformed the eye and it's not the way you want it to be. So now it's your job as the artist to form it out the way that you want it to be. Then I take any tool that I have, wooden sticks, forks, whatever, just make sure you clean them off really well. And I'm going to gently push in some eyes to make it kind of pop out. Sometimes students like to make a tongue or something. There's so many creative ideas I've seen for this monster mouth. And I know that I call it a monster mouth, but certainly it doesn't have to be anything like that. like I said, a little animal is really fun to do too. I can lay my tool down over here and give my critter a tongue like this down the center, gently pressing, making sure that it's not too thin. If it's too thin, it will break, just so you know. And then also making sure that it doesn't stick out too far. So something that sticks out quite a ways, like this, is probably going to break off. So if you're going to do a narwhal with a little horn, or a fish with a little tail, that's doable. But anything that's really sticking out a lot, or that actually my tongue is off the table, if it's resting on the table, chances are when I pick it up and put it down, it's going to break off when I do that. So we're thinking about like how you're going to use it and what that looks like. So the smaller the details, the more details you have. Definitely it's great, and it's also more challenging over time because it could break. I'm going to give my critter one more thing. I'm going to give it a tooth. So it's going to look like a baby. Maybe it's a baby tadpole. I'll put a little tooth on my baby. Ooh, that would be one sharp looking tadpole tooth, right? You could put on little eyelashes, just make sure they're stuck on well. But this is the point at your age where I want you to learn how to attach parts to clay, and that's what this assignment is about. Not only making your own pinch pot successfully, so it's nice and even thickness, and getting it to a balance on its side. The other part is attaching on parts, which is very challenging in clay. So I want you to make sure that everything is attached on really well. Once it breaks off and the clay is dry, there's not a lot I can do to fix it. You have to fire it, and then you could glue it back together with Elmer's glue after it's been fired. But once it's dry and it's broken apart, there's not a lot we can do to add parts back. Another thing I'm going to suggest is texture. So I'm not going to make it a tadpole if I make it furry, but here's an idea. I could make a furry critter. It is actually just a monster mouth anyway, so I can make it furry, my critter. Or I could add like long hair to it or something like that and press in this way. I could add scales to it, taking like an end of a spoon or taking the end of a knife and pressing gently in here. Anything that you add to it at this point to tell me what the critter is made out of and add more texture, the better it will be at the decoration part. So any kind of scales that you could add or fur that you could add. Now when you go to decorate it, trust me, cool. So think about that. Or you could leave it smooth, it's your choice. There's ways you can decorate it as well. Well, thank you friends for watching. Figure out how to attach, use a little bit of water, don't make your clay too slimy, and enjoy yourself. And make sure to wash your hands well when you're done. Thanks for watching, friends. Bye.